very, very much. Hi, Rich.
Hey, Terry, how are you?
Good. We're about to enter in the Independence Day weekend, a long weekend. Quick intro again, Terry Lavin, RVP Partnerships, GSTV. If you're not familiar, we are national video network on about 26,000 stations on the fuel pumps and over 200 DMAs. And our video programs are structured so that you're entertained for 4 minutes, and our partners take advantage of that because their ads know that the majority are going into the C-store down the road. And the number one spot to go to after visiting GSTV is, of course, QSRs. So my first guest is Richard Guest, Burger King's Vice President, Head of Marketing. Rich, in the annals of being introduced, the cheesy level of my intro just now, playing off your last name, where does it rank?
I'm going to give you some credit because I don't think it's happened. I don't think it's happened at a conference before, but checking into hotels, you would be surprised how many front desk clerks at midnight think it's really funny that your last name is Guest.
Well, I think it's I don't think it's funny. I think it's good. I think it's good because we have a really important chat today about the Gen Z, but more importantly, marketing to this vital demo. And you come from many years in the agency world. Most recently, Chief Digital Officer of DDB. And over the years, you've won your teams have won quite a few awards. I think about over 40 Cannes Lion Awards, and one of which is very Gen Z that I want to get into. Yeah. But could you just kind of give us the background and really, where your agency world was leading to and why just last November you decided to make the jump to a brand, but not just any brand, but the second largest QSR in the nation?
Yeah, great questions. I spent about 20 years at DDB and 22 years on the agency side in total, and loved every minute of it. And it was such a great learning experience. But pandemics happen and you reassess life and reassess what you want to do. And for probably the last 4 years I was at DDB, I had spent a lot of time working with Mars Incorporated and the fantastic CMOs they had there. And I learned so much from all of them, but I also learned that I wanted to be very hands-on with the brand, and I wanted to have the ability to drive transformation agendas, to keep brands modern and relevant, and see that all the way through. And there was a limit or kind of a lack of ability on the agency side to really see things all the way through, because as much as Mars always treated DDB as a mutual partner, you were still the agency, and there were still things that the client side marketing organization needed to do for itself. So that was something that had been on my mind. Obviously, pandemic, sitting at home, working on Zoom for 9 months, gave a lot of thinking time. And I was really lucky to have met Fernando Machado through many industry events. And he kind of called out of the blue and said, "We've got a new North American CMO at Burger King. We've got a great team. Will you leave the agency and come join up with Burger King?" And as an outsider, what a dream opportunity. They have been one of the leading brands in the world at producing relevant, buzzworthy, talkable content for many years. And I thought it was a great opportunity to learn from everyone at Burger King, but also bring some of the knowledge and experience I'd gained working with Mars into their world. So that got us to today, I guess, or at least got us to last November.
Is it accurate to say, well, first question, I mean, it's only been, I guess, 9 months or so. What would you say is the biggest difference between working for a brand and working for an agency? Is it that autonomy?
I think there's a certain level of responsibility and a certain requirement to see things all the way through to the guest in our case, and it goes much beyond the focus of any one advertising agency. There's a lot of work to orchestrate the great work that all of our agency partners are doing and ensure it comes together as a single experience or a single message to our guests in the restaurant at the end of the day. So I think that's been great, but expected. I think what's been great and unexpected is the pace at which Burger King can action decisions and action change. I came in having worked with Mars, which is a great privately held company, and many other big brands like Unilever and AT&T. And I had lost an appreciation that big companies like Burger King can still operate like a true startup. And what's amazing about the Burger King system is their ability to observe an opportunity or observe a problem and quickly pivot to implement a solution in 7,000 restaurants, not in a matter of years or months, but days and weeks. And it's been so stimulating to have the ability to identify opportunities, pivot, attack them, and implement them quickly.
That's great. And also, as publishers like to say, it's your money. So how's your team structured? I mean, when you look at, you know, the way your team has been structured, how does it interface with the overall Burger King marketing efforts?
Yeah. So I oversee Marcoms, or what we refer to as Marcoms. And for us, that includes paid media, that includes advertising, that includes organic social media, that includes visual design, that includes packaging design, that includes our merchandising and POP in restaurant, that includes things as far-flung as our crew uniforms. So it's a wide array of activities, but that all contribute to the overall guest perception of the brand and the business. And we work alongside 4 other key teams in the marketing department. One, and I have to say this is like probably one of the best teams in this area I've ever seen, but marketing insight and marketing analytics. We have a very robust team in that area. That's what helps us identify those opportunities and challenges that we can pivot against quickly. We have a truly amazing innovation team that's focused on our calendar, our category management, and our culinary innovation. And then we have a digital product team that manages all of our e-commerce platforms and our e-commerce businesses, which are a quick growing and very important part of our ecosystem.
I can imagine that they were in overdrive in this past 15, 16 months. So looking at the state of the QSR business as a whole, as it relates to coming out of COVID, you know, can you talk a little bit about, you know, on the technology front, how you were able to grasp the problem and work through the problem, and where are we today with QSRs as far as the future?
Yeah, I would say, I think everyone in the QSR industry would agree that COVID accelerated certain trends that were already happening at low levels in the business. So the move to delivery, the move to digital, the move to loyalty programs, I think broadly were being considered by everyone in the industry, and everyone was at different points in their journey to implement those types of projects and programs. Burger King, and this predates me, was very fortunate that they'd been on a journey for several years around the digital ecosystem, and leading up to the end of 2019 had put a lot of partnerships in place for third-party delivery and had sorted out arrangements with all of our franchisees to enable that third-party delivery. So when the pandemic hit and everyone was under quarantine orders, the Burger King team was able to very quickly, in that first month of March 2020, launch a first-party delivery program. So you were able to order delivery through our app or through our website. And we were one of the first in the industry to have that direct delivery component to complement our third-party delivery partners. And this took a little longer, but by May of 2020, we had curbside pickup in place at all of our restaurants, because we had seen there was a group of customers that didn't want delivery, whether it was through us or a third-party aggregator, but also didn't want to go through the drive-through. They wanted to order ahead, be able to quickly pick it up and leave without waiting in drive-through lines. So that change to a more digitally oriented customer experience was very much accelerated by the pandemic, and we are continuing to invest in those areas. Today, we launched our loyalty program, Royal Perks, earlier this year on a test market basis, and expect that it will continue to roll out and ultimately launch nationally well before the end of the year.
Regardless of where things shake out in the pandemic.
You're
saying the future.
We have to have a much deeper relationship with our guests. We have to know more about them where possible. We have to build an omni-channel, and we have built, but we need to continue to iterate and improve upon our omni-channel ordering experience. No longer is QSR just an in-restaurant or drive-through business. It is in-restaurant and drive-through, yes, and those are hugely important parts of the business, but they are also third-party delivery is a big part of our business. First-party delivery is a big part of our business, and we imagine in the future there will be other scenarios or other omni-channel ordering experiences that guests will want from us that might change the footprints of our restaurants. Like one of our competitors, I believe it was Del Taco, launched drone delivery the other week. So obviously technology will continue to impact how guests interact with a QSR restaurant, order from it, receive food, and ultimately have a great experience.
As critical as technology and innovation are, it still comes down to the food. And self-servingly, you can't get away from just looking at our list of partners and the rest of media. You cannot get away from these chicken wars. I'd love you to give us a deep dive, a deep fry, if you will, into these wars and what Burger King is doing to lead.
Yeah, the media loves the chicken wars. I think consumers just love fried chicken sandwiches, and everyone's caught on to that. Obviously, you can't operate in the QSR space today and not have some take on what your role with the fried chicken sandwich is, given how it's permeated pop culture. Burger King has always had fried chicken sandwiches of one sort or another. And probably one of the cult favorites on our menu is the original chicken sandwich, which is a hoagie shaped fried chicken sandwich that we've had since the early 80s. But what Popeyes and Chick-fil-A did was fundamentally change guest expectations of what a fried chicken sandwich in QSR could be. And we took that to heart. I think unlike some other folks in the industry, we didn't want to just have a chicken sandwich. We wanted to have a chicken sandwich that guests would think was the best thing on our menu, that guests would think was just as good as the Whopper, America's favorite burger. So the team spent about 20 months working on product concepts, working on tests, in-market tests, convincing our owner operators to change their operations so that we could freshly hand-bread chicken in restaurants every day versus some of our competitors that use kind of par fried products. And even then, we were cautious about how we launched it because we wanted our guests to have a great experience with the product. So we had a slow build up and a slow rollout starting in March of this year, about a couple thousand restaurants at a time, and until we got to June and decided to launch the product nationally with advertising. So we launched our Chiking hand-breaded chicken sandwich on June 3rd of this year, so just a few weeks ago. And it has been exceeding our expectations so far in terms of the reviews from guests, in terms of the sell-through of the product, in terms of the response we've gotten from food reviewers and the like in the media. So that's been great. And we really leaned in with this launch to try and attract a younger guest. Probably the very oldest end of Gen Z and the youngest end of the millennial generation. But we leaned into that and we launched creative that featured Paul Giamatti as the voiceover for all the spots, that featured a mix of all food ads that romance the product, but also more brand building ads that played off this idea of, what if Burger King launched a chicken sandwich that was just as good as the Whopper? Would that give the King nightmares? And we've seen that advertising work. We know through our credit card token data that we've brought in light and lapsed guests. We know we've brought in younger guests through some of the media data we have around view through rates and the like on those more brand building spots about the King's nightmare. We see younger audiences on YouTube watching those through to completion. So we're really excited about the first 4 weeks or so of that product launch and where it's going to go in the future.
That's fabulous. You mentioned Whopper and its relation with the chicken sandwich, the King. Obviously, the Whopper is probably the average age is in the 40s, high 40s. People who grew up on the Whopper ads, like people my age. But when you're looking now at this Gen Z, I mean, they're going to have different values. They are basically anybody born after 1997. They're omnicultural.
Yeah.
They've been called the loneliest generation. But Burger King really rests on its values. And I'm curious how you marry your values, your transparency, your credibility into that Gen Z audience and marketing.
Yeah, well, obviously recruiting a new generation of Whopper lovers is critical to our business. And it's an evergreen task for our teams. Whatever generation follows Gen Z, we will have to recruit them to be Whopper lovers as well. We are the home of the Whopper, and that is a core pillar that our business sits on. I think, and I can't take any credit for this because a lot of teams worked very hard on this for years before I joined the company. But what we did reach a milestone last year where we removed all colors, flavors, and preservatives from artificial sources from the Whopper. And later this year, we're hoping to do the same with our full menu, which we hope and we believe will help us attract that next generation of Whopper lovers, because we do believe there are certain different expectations that Gen Z has around food and the provenance of food than maybe previous generations do. So that's been a lot of work. It's not something that is incredibly common across the QSR industry, but something our franchisees invested a lot of money to make happen, and we believe will be a core component of recruiting that next generation of Whopper lovers. The other piece that we think about as a brand is how can we show up in culture, both pop culture and kind of broadly, and then generational culture or community culture more specifically, in a really relevant way on an ongoing basis. I think we've done a great job as a brand historically of having moments of brilliance, and we're trying to turn those moments of brilliance into sustained engagements with a whole host of communities, Gen Z being one of them. I think the LGBTQ plus community being another, multicultural communities being a third, and hopefully you see that reflected in our advertising to date, but increasingly you'll see us leaning into how can we be a part of this really amazing music festival that has great appeal to Gen Z and multicultural audiences. How can you see us support the LGBTQ community on a year-round basis, not just in the month of June, which we also did, but how do we extend that to a year-long participation in that community? And there's several others that of communities that we'll be engaging with over the course of the year to build that cultural relevance and pop culture relevance.
Can you dig a little bit deeper into that with the premise, the King is your brand? I mean, you are the King. How do you articulate the King and that personality to this Gen Z audience?
Yeah, it's a big question that I think we all wrestle with, and we all have a great responsibility to continue to iterate against. One note, the King's only been around since the mid 2000s. I think his first appearance in this current form, at least, was around 2006, maybe 2005. He was inspired by a brand character from the 60s that was part of our kids marketing work at the time. But his current iteration, he's really only been around for, call it 15 to 17 years. And he has had various iterations of his personality and his appearance over that time. We need to continue to ensure that he is modern and relevant to people. He is a great distinctive asset for our brand, and what we need to ensure is that he remains a relevant distinctive asset for our brand.
Yeah, you've been a part of some great campaigns in the past. Burger King has been a part of some great, very memorable brand campaigns. I'm just thinking of the Moldy Whopper as one. When you look at these target audiences, how do you play to different generations? The same or differently when you're thinking up your marketing strategy? Obviously, your target's different, but the strategy itself.
Yeah, I think there's probably several different components of that question that we could spend hours talking about. I think there is an overall marketing branding strategy that we want to drive the whole business behind. There's a comms strategy about how do you best connect with Gen Z, with millennials, with older Americans, whether that's Gen X or boomers. What I think is great, or what I think is a great opportunity, is that in my experience, the very real nature of Gen Z to be cynical towards advertising, not cynical towards the world, but cynical towards advertising. They know we're trying to sell them stuff. Opens up huge opportunities that help us relate to other age cohorts as well. So one of the things I learned from my days at DDB, working with Mars and working with a great creative partner like Ari Weiss, was just as important as our ads are our acts. And those acts can take the form of brand donations to social causes. Those acts can take the form of experiences. And we did a lot of that for the Skittles brand at DDB, building really unique experiences that Gen Z could get behind. 2 years ago, we had a one-day only Broadway musical on Super Bowl Sunday that people paid $200 a seat to come watch. Who would think that advertising, that people would pay to watch advertising, but they did. And it was those experiences that gave that advertising relevance to Gen Z and gave them an opening to set their cynicism to advertising aside and enjoy the act instead of the ad. And we're trying to bring some of that through to Burger King. We need to speak to everyone that eats fast food in America. We also need to really focus on attracting the next generation of Whopper lovers and finding that balance between an act and a set of ads that can speak to Gen Z and have relevance to the generations that came before them is something we spend a lot of time thinking about and are slowly sorting for. I think if you look at the advertising for the Chiking, you'll see it's heavily influenced by food review culture on YouTube. But we didn't just pick the youngest, coolest food reviewers, although Dame Drops appears in the ads. We also went to food reviewers who might have a broader appeal across culture. So someone like Bill Oakley, who does great food reviews, but maybe isn't truly plugged into Gen Z, appears in our ads as well. So trying to find that balance, trying to make something that is clearly informed by younger pop culture, but also accessible to everyone, is what we've set out to do. And hopefully you'll see us continue to do over the next 3 or 4 months.
Is there any, can you share with us any exciting new entertainers or celebrities that might be popping up to enhance this effort?
Yeah, I think, look, celebrities are the currency of the moment in QSR. And I think at this point, almost every QSR has some sort of celebrity partnership that they've launched or are launching. If you follow Burger King, you know we don't do exactly what everyone else does. So I would say if we are going to engage in some sort of celebrity partnership in the coming months or the coming years, it will be incredibly different than what you've seen anyone else do. And I'm sure as a brand, we'll find a way to use that marketing to also poke a little fun at some of our bigger competitors.
You do a good job of poking fun.
Try.
Is Speaking of that, when you're talking to your agency, how do you work with them? I mean, they're going to come up with influencers and TikTokers, but how do you have that conversation about Gen Z that goes beyond that? Well, first of all, let me ask you, do you have a favorite TikToker?
Do I have a favorite TikToker? No, what I love about TikTok is the rabbit hole. I can just sit there and scroll through various TikToks for hours at a time. And I will tell you that the algorithm has decided I really like talking dog videos. So I see a lot of those and they make me smile to no end. But TikTok is such a wealth of great content. I saw Ryan Reynolds join TikTok yesterday. I did follow him because he is one of my favorite content creators in general. But otherwise, I will just open TikTok, sit on the couch for 2 hours and scroll through a whole bunch of videos.
I do. There are 3 questions in the queue, and we have 3 minutes left, so I'd like to get to those. But
let's do it.
Very briefly, just kind of end on the your relationship or what your expectations are of your agency, typically.
Yeah. Our agencies are great partners to the brand and business. And I think what they've always done exceptionally well for Burger King and that we are continuing to do is finding people within their creative environment who are passionate about our brand, who are passionate about our products, and who don't want to stop thinking about our products. I've never seen agency partners bring more proactive ideas to the table or a client buy more proactive ideas that weren't briefed than Burger King does. So I think that's really important to us, that our agencies are our partners and are thinking about our business, whether we've briefed them or not, and bringing us those really unique opportunities to connect into culture.
Great to hear. If you could predict, this is a question from the queue, what the next generation after Gen Z would be, what would you say?
Oh gosh.
I'll give you a pass on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a pass, but I think, oh my God, are we living in interesting times? And are these interesting times going to shape people in new and unique ways? The idea that any of us would have been locked in our homes for 15 months was unthinkable in 2019. And I can only imagine how that's influenced, when you think about the impact of that on kids under 7, what it's been like for the past 15 months. It's going to form very unique ways of viewing the world for all of them. And I can't wait to see what that generation becomes.
Agreed. Here. Second question from an anonymous. What effect do you think that Gen Z generation will have on the corporations and brands as a whole as they move into leadership roles in the next 20, 30 years? What effect do you think Gen Z generation will have on corporations and brands as they move into leadership roles?
Yeah, I would argue, and folks can feel free to disagree with me, but I think every generation has taken the companies and brands around it and reformed it in a way that has made a lot of companies enduring successes and enduring icons, but always slightly changing. My prediction would be that Gen Z will revolutionize companies more than some of the slight changes the previous generations made to drive that success, because they've lived through so much upheaval, because they've lived through so much tension, because they've lived through so much technical revolution, and because they've lived through the last 15 months. I think when they are running companies, we'll see wholly different approaches to the role of corporations and culture, the role of work, and how and when you do that work. And I think also the distribution of wealth within companies will be areas I expect they'll fully revolutionize as they move into leadership positions.
That makes a ton of sense. And it's a little bit similar to this last question from the queue. What can heritage brands learn from newer digital first brands when it comes to authenticity or authentically marketing to Gen Z? We had spoken before about authenticity as well. And I think heritage brands can certainly learn a lot, but I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, I agree. Like, newer brands, through lack of budget, are forced to innovate and are forced to find new and interesting ways to market that are probably truer to the technology experience that Gen Z has with many of these platforms. I think there's two things a legacy brand needs to do. One, make sure your marketing teams are actually using these platforms. Before you jump in to buy an ad on Reddit, or before you jump in to buy an ad on Snap, make sure your teams really understand the communities on these platforms and the cultural norms of these platforms. I think that's what insurgent brands do really well. They inherently understand the norms of these platforms, and they play into them in a way that feels authentic. I think the second thing is take that advice that I learned from Ari Weiss to heart. Today, it's no longer about ads. Even if your ads are a partnership with a TikTok content creator, if that's all you're doing and you're not backing that up with acts, whether that's acts for social good or acts to create unique experiences for your audiences, you aren't really engaging them in a way that reflects their natural cynicism towards marketing, communications, and advertising.
That's very profound, actually. If someone were to come up to you, a publisher, after a speaking engagement, back when we're interacting humanly, and says, Rich, we have a phenomenal platform to reach all the Gen Zs in the world. What don't you want that person to follow that comment with? We could reach them X, Y, and Z. What don't you like hearing from publishers on how they could reach a particular audience? We'll focus on Gen Z, but if you have another idea, you could do that too.
Yeah, I like hearing everyone's ideas, particularly the crazy ones, because there's great inspiration in crazy ideas. But I think we have to move beyond advertising opportunities or marketing communication opportunities from publishers that are strictly forced viewing. We have to get into environments where either people are opting into advertising because there's a financial benefit to the service, because the advertising is providing some sort of benefit beyond. It's what I love about GSTV. It's really boring sitting there pumping gas, man. If I've got cool content to watch while I do it, it's certainly better than thinking about all the money that's going into my gas tank. So whether it's added value in the form of entertainment that people want to watch, or added value in terms of reducing costs that go out of pocket for people to enjoy some of these services, I think that's how we need to start thinking about advertising in the future, versus simply a forced view in a lean back environment.
Very well said. I see Emily is here to give us the hook. I have a deep history on where that came from and where it first exhibited itself in 1890s New York. I'll share that with you another time. But before I get the hook, may I ask a yes or no question of Rich? Rich, one of the first things you mentioned in your remit of your job, you mentioned uniforms. Is there, yes or no, any chance the brown, red, yellow striped uniforms of my youth is coming back?
Yes-ish.
Okay, that's good enough for me. Rich, thanks so much for your time. It was a fascinating conversation. Emily, thank you so very much for the platform.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you both so much. What a great discussion, and excited to see the evolution of the uniforms to come, whether it's a nod to nostalgia or a new version of that. But thank you both, and we hope to have you again soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Have a good afternoon. Well, what a great way to kick off the program. We're so excited to have all of you tuning in from home, and be sure to keep submitting those questions. I know it adds so much to the events when our speakers get to hear from you. And we're so excited for this next panelist. So without further ado, I'd like to